objection, we will be moving to business on the daily file. Members, we will go to file item 44, AB 957 by Assemblymember Wilson. The clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 957 by Assemblymember Wilson and others, enacting the family law.
Assemblymember Wilson, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, members. I am here to present AB 957, a bill that would require a court to consider a parent's affirmation of the child's identity, gender identity, when determining the best interest of a child. AB 957 would also require a court to strongly consider that affirming the gender identity of a minor is in the best interest of the child if a non-consenting parent objects to a name change to conform to the minor's gender identity. I understand many of my colleagues are absent today, but I'm bringing up this bill today in particular because tomorrow, March 31st, is International Transgender Day of Visibility. This is an important week, and I want to take the time to highlight the legislature's affirmation that we see this community and will fight for equality for all transgender people. Members, currently, when parents do not agree on affirming a TGI, which stands for transgender, gender diverse, intersex, when parents do not agree on affirming a TGI child's gender identity, the Family Code does not specify how a judge should determine the best interest of a TGI child. TGI youth are at a higher risk of depression, mental health crisis, self-harm, and suicide than their cis peers. Having at least one adult in a child's life who affirms their gender identity decreases their chance of attempting suicide significantly. 82% of transgender individuals experience suicide ideation, and 40% make a suicide attempt in their lifetime. Research demonstrates that a family acceptance of LGBTQ+ youth is a crucial protective factor in combating depression and substance abuse, and can dramatically reduce rates of suicide by half. Furthermore, many TGI children are not safe in their own homes because of non-affirming or abusive caretakers. This leads many TGI youth to run away from home, leaving them vulnerable to housing instability, exploitation, and further abuse. Well-rounded social support from friends and family members is strongly associated with positive mental development, physical health, and overall well-being. AB 957 would center the health and welfare of a TGI youth by acknowledging that their affirming gender identity is in their best interest. It would allow them to be seen in our court system. Please join me in supporting this bill and demonstrating the Assembly's support for this important issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblymember. Assemblymember Aguiar-Curry, you are recognized.
Ms. Speaker and colleagues, I am proud to support AB 957 and thank my dear friend from Suisun City for her work on this important issue. Everyone should be able to have a name that reflects their gender identity and a home that allows them to feel comfortable in their own skin. This bill is an important step to protecting transgender, gender diverse, and intersex youth. I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Assemblymember Aguiar-Curry. Assemblymember Zebra, you are recognized.
Thank you. I want to rise today in support of AB 957, and I want to thank the author and the co-authors for this very important bill. As one of the members of this body who has TGI members, family members in my family, this is a really important bill. And we know from medical experts and experts that the thing that is most important to care for these kids is making sure that we support them and that we affirm them. This bill is an important tool that gives parents the tools they need to do exactly what we need to do for these kids. Support them, affirm them, and love them. I ask for an aye vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblymember Zebra. Assemblymember Haney, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I rise in support of AB 957 and thank the member from Suisun City for your leadership. This is a very scary, dangerous time for transgender youth. We're seeing all over the country and sadly all over our state attacks on young people, attacks on their identity, attacks on them just being able to live as who they are. And here in California, we know that the best way that we can provide for all of our young people is through compassion, it's through affirmation, and it's through support. And this bill, I think, is such an important statement for who we are, and I have no doubt that it will save lives. I represent the Transgender Cultural District in San Francisco, and what we've seen is when we embrace people's identity, especially young people, that their mental health, their physical health, their emotional health improves and has support as well. I very strongly support this bill and encourage an aye vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblymember Haney. Assemblymember Cervantes, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Today I rise in support for AB 957 and thank my colleague from Suisun City, my former seatmate, for bringing this bill up. Unfortunately, this bill deals with a scenario that is all too common for our community. Our families do not often accept us when we are brave enough and vulnerable enough to come out and be our true, authentic selves. This is true especially for our trans siblings, who have recently faced an increase of discrimination and violence for no other reason than being themselves. I am proud to see this bill on the Assembly floor today. I want to thank the author as an ally and as someone in our family, our community, for bringing forth a piece of this legislation that actually helps protect the rights and dignity of transgender individuals. This has not been the case in other legislative bodies, as we've seen across our country, where legislation is targeting, discriminating against our transgender siblings, and we need to stand up here in California. Let me be clear, this bill is essential to California values: dignity, diversity, acceptance, and willingness to protect the rights of all. As a member of the California LGBTQ caucus, I want our transgender siblings to know we stand with you every single day, and we will make sure that in the legislature you hear it loudly and clearly from Sacramento. Please know that we believe that our transgender siblings' rights are going to be protected because they are human rights. And so again, thank you to our colleague, and I hope you will join us in supporting AB 957.
Thank you, Assemblymember Cervantes. Assemblymember Jones-Sawyer.
And I want to thank Assemblymember Wilson for bringing this forward. I had a cousin that's transgender. Unfortunately, I'm using the word had. As an African-American in the African-American community growing up, we weren't the most accepting. Matter of fact, we were probably hostile to transgender people when I was growing up and when we were kids. And some of the things that we used to do were horrific. Even just the verbal things we said to my cousin. My cousin eventually was so distraught because he couldn't come to family functions. He wasn't really accepted, that he got hooked on drugs. He eventually died in San Francisco of a drug overdose. Homeless, alone. It took about 3 months before the coroner's office was able to find my aunt and his mother so that we could bury him. That's my cousin. He should have not gone through that. And the torture he went through as a kid will always burn in my heart, will always burn in my memory, and I wish I had done more. And so I'm so grateful to you for doing this, moving forward, that we're able to do something for individuals that are in that dilemma, especially in our community, especially in the black community. We got to do more. So thank you, Assemblymember Wilson.
Thank you, Assemblymember Jones-Sawyer. Assemblymember Mathis, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, this is a very difficult and touchy subject, and I truly appreciate the authors really trying to wrap her arms and her mind around what's happening with our transgendered youth. It's very touchy. And I think for parents, because I have friends and family that have gone through this and have gone through the transitioning process, and these are those things that a lot of us don't really talk about because we don't really necessarily even know how to talk about them. My one concern, and the reason why I'll be laying off today, and that I trust the author will be looking at moving forward, is we have to be very careful that we're not splitting parents who are trying to work through this together to split them apart on decisions. So I'm looking forward to seeing some of that being addressed in the future, because we need to make sure that we're not dividing families during these touchy times. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblymember Mathis. Assemblymember Wilson, seeing and hearing no others wishing to speak on this, would you like to close?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you to all of my fellow colleagues across California who stood up to speak on this particular issue and ensure that transgender youth, adults, individuals are seen by the California legislature. That is so important. At the very core of who we are, we all desire, no matter who we are, to be seen by people. And with your I vote, you are doing that today. And I am so thankful to my colleague who sits next to me for speaking out, because that is part of the democratic process. Sometimes it looks messy, sometimes we don't agree, but somehow, some way, we can get to where we need to do to make sure that every single Californian, no matter who they are taken care of. And that's what this bill does today. It allows our court system to see TGI individuals, children, for who they are, and allow that to be taken into consideration as a part of their discretionary role as a judge, as a part of their toolkit. And that's what this does. And so with that, I respectfully ask for your I vote.
Thank you, Assemblymember. The clerk will open the roll. All those who desire to vote. All those votes who desire to vote. All those votes who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the votes. Ayes 51, noes 16. The measure passes.